Welcome to Guyana News Updates, your premier destination for staying informed on the ever-evolving political landscape and key developments shaping our nation. In Guyana, in recent days, Guyana has witnessed a series of significant political movements and policy discussions that demand your attention. We are committed to bringing you the most crucial insights directly from the sources. Here's what you can expect to delve into on our channel discussion today. Political resignations and realignment. Stay informed about the recent resignation of Germain Figuera from PNC Reform and as an APNU plus AFC Member of Parliament. His departure, made via a terse letter, did not include a reason. However, it is suspected that issues between Figuera and the party's leadership had been brewing. Their relationship soured after a party group in Linden under his leadership was dissolved. Although he retained his chairmanship of the Public Accounts Committee, some party followers accused him of distancing himself from the APNU plus AFC and aligning with the government. Opposition leader Aubrey Norton indicated there was still a place for Figuera in the PNCR and APNU, inviting him to be part of the APNU plus AFC's candidates list for upcoming elections. New political alliances. We'll cover the newly announced alliance agreement between a new and united Guyana, ANUG, and the We Invest in Nationhood, WIN, party for the upcoming elections. Under this agreement, ANUG will fall under the WIN banner. This pact, signed by party leaders Dr. Mark Diffrence, ANUG, and Azruddin Mohammed, WIN, aims to reinforce the WIN campaign's strength. Importantly, an official from WIN clarified that this is not a coalition agreement but rather ANUG coming under the WIN banner. Following the announcement, co-founders and former political leaders of ANUG, Senior Counsel Timothy Jonas and Senior Counsel Ralph Ramkaren, announced their resignations from the party. Concerns have been raised regarding WIN's leadership, as Azruddin Mohammed is sanctioned by the U.S. government over allegations of tax evasion and gold underdeclaration. Gisuko's future and policy debates. Understand the conflicting visions for the Guyana Sugar Corporation, Guysuco. APNU presidential candidate Aubrey Norton has unveiled a revitalization plan that assures no loss of jobs in the sugar industry. His plan aims to diversify Gisuko's portfolio for new business ventures like aquaculture and food production. In contrast, Kemraj Ramjatan, co-founder of the Alliance for Change, AFC, has criticized the president's diversification plan as a political gimmick, arguing that the industry's decline predates the APNU plus AFC administration and that massive investment won't overcome fundamental issues like low world market prices for sugar. National symbols and political controversy. Follow the Guyana Elections Commission (GECOM's) decision to disallow the jaguar as a political symbol for the WIN party. Despite when claiming the symbol was a leopard, GECOM ruled that the use of the jaguar, part of the coat of arms, is unacceptable under Article 7 of the Constitution. Indigenous leaders previously objected to its use, citing its sacred significance. Opposition-nominated Commissioner Vincent Alexander criticized GECOM's decision as beyond logic and demonstrating ineptitude and bias. Don't miss out on these crucial updates and more. For comprehensive and timely reports on Guyana's political landscape, economic policies, and electoral developments, make sure to subscribe to the Guyana News Updates YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you're always in the know. The discussion begins now.
Okay, let's unpack this. Guyana's political landscape is really buzzing with activity lately, and we've got a stack of fascinating sources that lay out some pretty major shifts.
Definitely.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into the latest political maneuvers, these new electoral alliances forming, and even a symbolic controversy that's rocking the nation, all ahead of the upcoming elections, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission here is to sort of extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from these reports and help you understand what's truly going on behind the headlines.
And what's really fascinating here is how these, seemingly separate events. Mm-hmm. You've got a prominent resignation, a new political alliance, this critical debate over Guysuco, and even a squabble over a party symbol they all connect. They paint a picture of a very dynamic, highly scrutinized political environment.
Yeah.
So we'll be looking at not just what happened, but why it matters for the bigger picture, what it might signal.
Right. So first up, we have this significant political departure. It kind of hints at some internal shifts within the opposition. News source Guyana reported on June 29th, 2025, that Germain Figuera, an opposition member of parliament, he tendered his resignation from the People's National Congress Reform and as an APNU plus AFC MP. This feels like more than just a simple resignation, doesn't it?
Absolutely. What stands out immediately, I think, is the brevity of his resignation letter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was notably short, terse, actually, just a single paragraph. And crucially, offering no reason for his decision directly to the PNC reform or to the opposition leader, Aubrey Norton.
Huh.
And this is significant because Figuera, he hails from Linden. He wasn't just any MP. He was the regional representative for the APNU plus AFC in the National Assembly.
So a high-profile exit and a quiet one, sort of. What does that lack of a stated reason tell us about these internal party conflicts, maybe?
Well, it suggests underlying tension that's likely been building for a while. It had been, widely suspected there were issues between him and the party leadership, which is interesting because, he was famously the first MP to christen Norton as the next president of Guyana right after Norton became opposition leader.
Right, I remember that.
But that relationship, it seems, became quite strained over the past couple of years.
Okay. And were there specific events that sort of highlighted this growing strain?
Yes, definitely. There are a few key things. The party group in Linden, which was under Figuera's leadership, it was actually dissolved.
Dissolved. Why?
Because it hadn't held elections or even meetings in over 2 years.
No.
So that was one thing. Then he was also later removed as the opposition MP, shadowing the Culture, Youth, and Sport Minister.
Ah, okay. A demotion.
A significant demotion, yeah. Though it's worth noting, he did keep his position as chairman of the powerful Public Accounts Committee in the National Assembly. And adding to this, back in Linden, some party followers had apparently accused him of distancing himself from APNU plus AFC and the PNC. They were saying he was like aligning with the government.
Yeah.
Often seen at presidential visits, but, absent from party functions.
Mm-hmm. So this wasn't exactly sudden then, more like a slow burn.
Seems that way.
What was the party's public stance on this before he actually resigned?
Well, interestingly, the day before Figuera's resignation, at an APNU press conference, Aubrey Norton publicly said Figuera was invited to be on the APNU plus AFC's candidates list for the upcoming elections.
No, okay.
Norton added there was a place for Germain Figuera in the PNCR and the APNU, though he did note Figuera hadn't signed yet.
Right.
And the Region 10 chairman, Jerron Adams, also put out a statement thanking Figuera, wishing him well. So, trying to manage it publicly.
So the key takeaway here seems to be that even with elections coming up, these internal party fissures, they're very active. Loyalty might be fluid.
Exactly. It suggests potential for more realignments, maybe even splintering within the opposition. It shows individual calculations are paramount.
That's a crucial point. And it leads right into the next development, doesn't it? Almost simultaneously with this resignation.
Mm-hmm.
We saw this significant move on the alliance front could really reshape the opposition landscape. On the very same day, we learned a new and united Guyana, AAE, is teaming up with the We Invest in Nationhood Party, WN.
Yes, and this alliance agreement, it's quite specific. AAA will be falling under the WIN banner for the upcoming elections. This was announced in a joint statement signed by Dr. Marc DeFrance, AARU's leader, and Azruddin Mohammed, who's WIN's leader.
Yeah, okay.
They stated AES is the first political party to officially join the WIN platform. The goal, they say, is enhancing collective capacity to deliver meaningful change, and it marks the beginning of a broader national movement to unify and uplift Guyana.
So not just a coalition, but explicitly coming under the WIN banner? Is that distinction important, especially thinking about AD's history with alliances?
It absolutely is. A WIN official actually stressed that point. It's energy coming under the WIN banner, specifically not a coalition agreement.
Right.
And this is relevant because, you remember, Energy was part of that joinder agreement before the 2020 elections.
Yes.
Where they never actually got their rotating seat in the National Assembly. Dr. Asha Kissoon of the New Movement took the seat and, didn't give it up.
Ah, okay. So past experience matters here.
Definitely. And ANOG itself, founded back in 2019, Ralph Ramkern was their presidential candidate then.
And just hours after this new alliance was announced, we saw another ripple effect. Really highlights how sensitive these political alignments are.
Precisely. Both A&OG co-founders and former leaders, Senior Counsel Timothy Jonas and Senior Counsel Ralph Ramkern, they announced their resignations from the party.
Wow. Both of them.
Both of them. Neither gave specific reasons, though. Jonas just posted his resignation on Facebook. Ramkern put out a statement saying he hadn't been active, hadn't paid dues in almost 5 years, but was giving notice of resignation just in case he was still on the record.
The departure of two founding figures like Jonas and Ramkern, that's got to be significant for A&G.
Huge.
But then there's also the controversial figurehead of W, as Rudin Mohammed. How does his involvement play into this?
Well, this adds a very controversial layer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's really why this alliance is getting so much scrutiny. As Rudin Mohammed, he's a billionaire businessman currently sanctioned by the U.S. government over allegations of tax evasion and gold under declaration.
You're right.
And he's also facing local tax evasion charges.
Yeah.
So there's significant public concern about potential backlash from the U.S. for any ties to a sanctioned individual.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes this alliance particularly watched. The key insight here, I think, is that this alliance shows the delicate balance smaller parties face. The desire for broader reach versus the risk of alienating your base, especially when controversial figures are involved. Mm-hmm. And crucially, it highlights how U.S. sanctions aren't just an economic issue anymore. They're a very real political liability. It immediately shifts the internal dynamics.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit. Beyond the party reshuffles and alliances, another critical conversation shaping things is the future of Guysuco, the Guyana Sugar Corporation. Feels like we've got two very different, almost clashing visions being presented here for, well, one of Guyana's most historic industries.
That's right. On one side, you have Aubrey Norton, the APNU presidential candidate. Mm. He recently unveiled his plans to diversify Guysuco if APNU forms the next government. And his key promise is explicit and quite a contrast to recent history. Not one sugar worker will be fired.
Which stands out, right? Given the APNU plus AFC government's actions between 2017-2018, thousands lost jobs during that right-sizing.
Exactly. So he's essentially saying, we'll fix it, but without the job losses seen before.
So what's his proposed approach, then, for Guysuco's future?
His plan involves refashioning the industry, retraining workers for new ventures. On that controversial topic of closing estates, Norton actually stated the PPP closed more estates than APNU plus AFC did.
Oh, interesting.
And he said he wouldn't pronounce on further closures yet, but he reiterated his policy bottom line. No firing of workers.
Okay.
He outlined proposed new business ventures, things like housing development, aquaculture, food production, manufacturing. He emphasized Guysuco need not remain exclusively an agriculture-based entity.
So moving beyond just sugar.
Right. Suggesting potential for ethanol, livestock feed, cogeneration of electricity. He also mentioned a role for public and private partnerships.
And what about privatization? Did he touch on that?
He did. He said, and I quote, "If privatization is going to make it viable, we will. But at this stage, I don't think we have done an assessment to decide whether we will privatize it." His ultimate vision is for Guysuco to become a net contributor to national revenue rather than a drain.
Mm-hmm. And where does Guysuco stand now, production-wise?
Well, context is important. Their 2024 production was just over 47,000 tons, which was actually a 21% shortfall from their target.
Okay, so that's Norton's vision. But like you said, big plans always get pushback. Kemraz Ramjathan, co-founder of the Alliance for Change, he had some strong words for President Irfan Ali's diversification plan, calling it a political gimmick.
Yeah, Ramjathan certainly didn't hold back. He criticized President Ali's announcement of a massive diversification plan for Guysuco, called it propaganda, and a political gimmick meant to hoodwink citizens.
Strong words.
Very. He argued the PPP wants to spend a massive set of money, for electoral purposes too, on a sector that has gone down the drain in the worst of its history.
Wow. And President Ali's response?
Well, President Ali, on the other hand, points the finger back, claiming APNU plus AFC is responsible for Guysuco's current state because they closed estates like Wales, East Demerara, Rose Hall, and Skeldon between 2016 and 2017.
So it's a classic blame game. Who ruined the industry? How does Ramjathan defend the APNU plus AFC's right-sizing then, given those closures?
Ramjathan counters that argument. He says it was actually the PPPC government from 1992 to 2015 that really brought the industry down.
Okay. How so?
He specifically pointed to EU funds, over US $100 million, which he claims were not directed by the PPP to rehabilitate factories or for drainage and irrigation. He explained that when the coalition took office in 2015, the industry was already in a terrible state, and their decision to right-size wasn't just pulled out of thin air. It was based on a commission's report, an industry paper, and expert advice from Errol Henneman, who used to lead Guysuka.
Right. And what was Henneman's key advice on Guysuka, according to Ramjatan?
According to Ramjatan, Henneman advised that right-sizing was the way to go forward, so that at some point in time we can make it profitable. This involved merging estates, but also, as he put it, phasing away of certain factories.
I see.
Ramjatan noted the coalition government still spent around $42 billion on Guysuka between 2015 and 2020.
Mm.
He also offered his opinion that, look, the younger generation just isn't interested in sugar work anymore because of its back-breaking character.
Okay. And what about mechanization? Is that an option?
He raised challenges there, too. Argued that the soil types and terrain on the estates are not compatible for large-scale mechanization, and the capital investment needed is tremendous.
Right.
Crucially, he argued that the world market price for sugar will likely stay lower than the cost of production anyway, making the industry financially unviable even with big investments.
But his bottom line is?
His bottom line is that right-sizing is still necessary, and he warned PPPC supporters not to be misled by diversification promises.
So two deeply contrasting visions for Guysuka. One pushing diversification, promising no job losses. The other arguing for more right-sizing based on, well, harsh economic realities.
Exactly.
And the core insight here seems to be, this isn't just about an industry, is it? It's a fundamental debate over economic philosophy, historical blame, and it directly impacts thousands of livelihoods.
Precisely. It's deeply political and deeply personal for many.
Okay, so from resignations and economic plans, let's move to something a bit more symbolic, but just as contentious, it seems. The Guyana Elections Commission, GECOM. They made a decision recently that sparked quite a debate, especially around the symbol chosen by that new alliance party, WIN. What happened there?
Right. This decision came down on June 27, 2025. The GSCOM chairman, retired Justice Claudette Singh, she sided with the government-nominated commissioners, and they voted against allowing the jaguar to be used as a symbol for the WIN party.
Okay. And what was the reason given?
The stated reason, according to government-nominated Commissioner Sas Gunraj, was that the chair ruled based on Article 7 of the Constitution. That article outlines the duty of citizens to respect national symbols. And since the jaguar is part of Guyana's coat of arms, its use as a party symbol was deemed unacceptable.
Okay, that seems straightforward. A constitutional argument. But was there any history here, any precedent that complicates this?
There is, actually, and this is where it gets messy. There's a counterexample. Another party, the Rise, Organize, and Rebuild Guyana Party, they previously used a roaring jaguar as their symbol decades ago, apparently without objection.
Ah, so it has been used before.
Seemingly so, which immediately became a point of contention, and the WIN party themselves, they responded immediately. They claimed the symbol they submitted wasn't even a jaguar, it was a leopard.
A leopard, not a jaguar.
That's their claim. They said no specific name for the animal was required with their submission, and a simple check would prove it was a leopard.
So WIN is arguing it's a case of mistaken identity by GCOM, or maybe misinterpretation.
Potentially. However, a GCOM source complicated that by pointing out that while the party might not have officially called it a jaguar in their paperwork, the WIN's presidential candidate, Azruddin Mohammed, had, in fact, described the symbol as a jaguar while out on the campaign trail.
Okay, so the description used publicly differed perhaps from the submission.
It seems that way. And this issue also drew objections from indigenous leaders. The chairman of the National Toshhouses Council and the leader of the Liberty and Justice Party both stated the jaguar is sacred to indigenous people.
All right, adding another layer of sensitivity.
Exactly. And interestingly, the very first person to object was the chairman of the National Parks Commission, Foreign Secretary Robert Persaud, who also pointed to it being part of the national symbols.
So you've got constitutional arguments, historical precedent, the party claiming it's a different animal, the candidate's public description, and cultural significance all swirling around this symbol.
A real mix.
How did the opposition side of GECOM view this decision?
Well, opposition-nominated Commissioner Vincent Alexander was quite critical. He stated, GECOM demonstrated ineptitude and bias and called the decision beyond logic.
So highly contested.
Very much so. And the key insight, I think, is that even seemingly minor things like political symbols can become incredibly charged. They reflect deeper political tensions and inevitably lead to scrutiny of critical institutions like GECOM, questioning their impartiality.
Yeah.
It highlights how basically every aspect of the political landscape, even down to a party emblem, can become a battleground in this environment. So if we try to, connect all these dots, what we've really seen today are multiple facets of a highly charged political environment in Guyana. It's dynamic, it's complex. You've got internal party struggles playing out publicly, new alliances forming under controversial circumstances, these deep-seated debates over the future of national industries like sugar, and even fights over the meaning of symbols. Every single move is being carefully scrutinized and carries potentially significant implications, especially with elections on the horizon, which I think raises an important question for you, the listener.
Indeed. What stands out to Wikio from all these developments we've discussed? How do you think these individual pieces, figure as Resignation, the ANGGW alliance with all its baggage, these two clashing visions for Guyana, and this whole debate over a party symbol, how do you think they'll ultimately shape the political future of Guyana? It's clear that in this evolving landscape, every decision, whether it seems big or small, carries immense weight, something to think about